My name is Luciana Brooks. I'm 31 years old, and until that Thursday afternoon, I believed stability wasn't something you stumbled into. It was something you built, carefully, quietly, without leaving cracks that could collapse later. That belief shaped everything: my work, my routines, my relationships, especially my judgment. Or at least, I thought it did. The front desk called me down just after lunch. Their voice carried something unusual, not urgency, not panic, just a subtle discomfort that made me pause before standing up. When I stepped into the lobby, the air felt different. Still, watchful. A man stood near the glass doors holding a thick envelope. Neutral expression, professional distance, the kind of presence that doesn't belong in ordinary moments. "Luciana Brooks?" he asked. I nodded. He handed me the papers, had me confirm my name, then walked out without another word. No explanation, no drama, just finality. I didn't open the envelope right away. I already knew. There's a certain weight to things like that. You feel it before you read it. Still, I unfolded this document slowly, my fingers steady in a way that surprised even me. Daniel Monroe, my boyfriend of 3 years. He had filed an emergency protective order against me. Emotionally abusive, financially controlling. I read those words twice, not because I didn't understand them, but because I needed to see how far reality had been rewritten. The evidence was almost surreal. A text message where I had asked, "Hey, didn't you say you couldn't cover your car payment?" after he came home with designer sneakers. An email suggesting we sit down and make a budget together. That was it. That was the narrative. According to his statement, I tracked his spending, interrogated him about money, created an environment where he felt unsafe. I stood there in the lobby, reading those lines, and for a moment, I almost admired the simplicity of it, because reality looked very different. Daniel had 4 credit cards, all in his name. I was paying them off. His apartment lease had my name as guarantor because his credit couldn't support it. His car insurance under my policy. For 2 years, I had been quietly covering gaps. Temporary, I told myself, just until he stabilized. Just until we stabilized. But in that moment, none of that mattered. The only thing that mattered was the paper in my hands telling me I had to stay 100 yards away from him. No contact, direct or indirect, effective immediately. I didn't argue. I didn't call him. I didn't even feel angry. What I felt was clarity. A kind of quiet, precise understanding that settles in when something finally makes sense in the worst possible way. I went back upstairs, closed my office door, sat down at my desk, and opened my banking apps. Sometimes the most powerful response isn't to correct someone's story. It's to stop participating in it. Within the first 15 minutes, I canceled all automatic payments tied to his credit cards. They were his accounts, not joint. I had been paying by choice. That choice was no longer mine to make. I notified the banks, confirmed cancellations, saved every receipt. Then I called my insurance provider and removed him as an authorized driver from my policy. No hesitation, no explanation, just removal. Next, I called his apartment complex. "Hi, this is Luciana Brooks," I said calmly. "I'm listed as guarantor for Daniel Monroe's lease." The property manager, Carla, pulled up the file. "If you step down as guarantor," she said, "he'll have 30 days to qualify on his own or find a replacement. Otherwise, he risks eviction." "That's fine," I replied. "Please start the 30-day notice." There was a pause on her end, a small one. Not judgment, just recognition. "Understood," she said. I ended the call. Then I went through everything else. Streaming services, phone plan, shared subscriptions, each one disconnected, each one documented, each one quiet. By the time I finished, less than an hour had passed. I organized the confirmation emails into a folder, closed my laptop, and walked into my 3 o'clock meeting. I delivered my presentation, answered questions, closed the deal. From the outside, nothing had changed. Inside, everything had. That night, my phone was silent. Completely silent. No messages, no missed calls. No, "Can you cover this just until next week?" The restraining order didn't just block me from contacting him. It blocked him from reaching me too. For the first time in years, there was nothing. And it felt unfamiliar. Not lonely. Just quiet. Saturday morning at exactly 8, my phone rang. Unknown number. I let it ring twice before answering. "Miss Brooks," a man's voice said, measured and professional. "My name is Daniel Kessler. I represent Mr. Monroe." Of course he did. "I believe there's been a misunderstanding regarding the protective order," he continued. "What misunderstanding?" I asked. "My client is currently experiencing significant financial disruptions," he said carefully. "Several of his accounts have been affected. We understand you've canceled payments on his credit cards." I stopped making voluntary payments, I replied. They're his accounts. Yes, but he depended on those payments. There it was. Dependence. Framed as entitlement. Then he should have considered that before filing a restraining order claiming my financial involvement was abusive, I said calmly. A pause. Perhaps we can reach a temporary arrangement, he tried again. He's open to amending the order to allow communication strictly for financial matters. I leaned back slightly in my chair, staring out the window. This is a no-contact order, I said. I'm complying fully. That includes no financial relationship. But... He stated under oath that my involvement was harmful, I continued. I'm removing myself completely. That's safer for both of us. Silence. Then a shift in tone. Subtle. Sharper. This could be seen as retaliation, he said. Or compliance, I replied. Enjoy your weekend. And I hung up. Because sometimes the clearest thing you can do is exactly what they asked for. The messages started less than 20 minutes after I hung up on Daniel's lawyer. Not from him. They couldn't be. The restraining order made sure of that. They came from numbers I didn't recognize. Long strings of digits. No names attached. Just words. Fast, emotional, insistent. You're really going to leave him like this? I can't believe you'd do this to someone you supposedly loved. Real women don't abandon people when things get hard. I read each message once. Then I stopped reading them emotionally. There's a difference between hearing something and recognizing a pattern. I took screenshots. Every number, every paragraph, every attempt to push me back into a role I had already stepped out of. Then I forwarded them to my lawyer, Robert. We had spoken briefly Friday afternoon. Retainer signed, situation explained. He didn't need a long introduction. Cases like this followed a rhythm. Third-party contact on behalf of someone under a restraining order was still contact. He replied with one sentence. Keep documenting. Do not engage. I didn't. Monday morning, the tone shifted. Daniel's lawyer sent a formal email. The language was more polished this time, carefully structured, less emotional, more accusatory. He claimed that my sudden withdrawal of financial support constituted a form of financial abuse, that Daniel had relied on my contributions and removing them without notice placed him in immediate distress. I read it slowly. Then I typed my response. Short, clean, final. Per the restraining order, I cannot have any personal or financial relationship with Mr. Monroe. Providing financial support would constitute such a relationship. I am fully complying with the court's directive. I read it once. Then I sent it. There's a moment when you stop explaining yourself that something shifts. You realize you're not being misunderstood. You're being rewritten. And once you see that, you stop arguing with the script. By Monday afternoon, the situation had moved somewhere else entirely. Social media. I didn't know at first. A coworker mentioned it casually while we were grabbing coffee. Hey, is everything okay? She asked carefully. Something in her tone made me pause. What do you mean? She hesitated, then turned her phone toward me. An Instagram post. Mia, Daniel's best friend. When toxic women use money to control men after being called out for abuse, financial abuse is real. Narcissists always show their true colors. Attached were screenshots. Text messages. My messages? The same ones from the restraining order. But Mia had made a mistake. She hadn't cropped everything carefully. Below the highlighted messages, below the parts meant to frame me, there were others. Daniel's messages. I told you the restraining order would make her back off. I just didn't think she'd actually stop paying everything. This is worse than I thought. I stared at the screen for a long second, not reacting, just absorbing. Because sometimes the truth doesn't need defending. It just needs to be seen. Are you going to respond? My coworker asked quietly. I shook my head. No. I took a screenshot. Then another. Then I sent them to Robert. When people expose themselves, he said later that evening over the phone, you don't interrupt them. You let them finish. That night, the post was gone. No apology. No explanation. Just erased. But the screenshots remained. They always do. Tuesday evening, my phone rang again. This time, it was Carla from the apartment complex. Miss Brooks, she said, her tone more formal than before. I'm required to inform you that Mr. Monroe has not provided updated financial qualifications or a replacement guarantor. How many days does he have left? I asked. 23. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. Please confirm the guarantor status will end as scheduled. It will, she said. Then she hesitated. There is something else. I leaned back slightly. What is it? He came in today, with his mother. Of course he did. There was an incident, she continued. His mother attempted to submit a renewal form with your name already signed. I didn't speak immediately. I didn't need to. We have your original signature on file, Carla said. And cameras in the office. It was clearly forged. The words sat there between us. Heavy, precise. What happens now? I asked. We've referred the matter to our legal team, she said, and local authorities. I closed my eyes briefly. Not in frustration, in recognition. Patterns don't appear out of nowhere. They repeat. They evolve. They escalate. Thank you for letting me know, I said. After I hung up, I called Robert. He picked up on the second ring. Forgery? He repeated. Yes. There was a pause. Not surprise. Something closer to confirmation. That changes things, he said. How? It establishes a pattern, he replied. False claims, financial dependency, now fraudulent behavior. I didn't respond right away. I was thinking about something else. Not the forgery, not the legal implications, but the quiet, steady realization that none of this had actually started last Thursday. It had just surfaced. Soon after, another message came through. Not a text this time. LinkedIn. I almost didn't open it. Almost. But curiosity has a way of pulling you in when everything else is already unraveling. The sender's name made me pause. Diane Monroe. Daniel's mother. Luciana, this has gone too far, she wrote. You and Daniel had a disagreement, and now you're destroying his life. Step up and fix this. I read it once. Then I took a screenshot. Then I closed the app. Because there's a point where words stop being communication and start being pressure. I wasn't interested in either. Later that night, Robert called me again. They didn't just try to forge your name on the lease, he said. I sat up slightly. What do you mean? There's more, he continued. His mother attempted to add herself to your car insurance policy, listed as Daniel's guardian. I let out a quiet breath. Daniel was 28, and there's an attempt to open a credit card under your name. That one landed differently. Not louder, just deeper. That's identity theft, I said. Yes, Robert replied, and it won't stay small. I looked out the window, the city lights reflecting faintly against the glass. Somewhere between Thursday and now, everything had shifted. Not dramatically. Not all at once. Just steadily, like something unraveling exactly the way it was always meant to. And for the first time since it started, I wasn't in the middle of it anymore. I was watching it, from the outside. By Wednesday morning, the situation had moved beyond inconvenience and into consequence. Not the kind you argue your way out of. The kind that builds quietly, piece by piece, until there's nowhere left to stand. Robert called just after 9. They've opened a formal investigation, he said. Into the forgery? I asked. Into everything, he replied. Lease documents, insurance access attempts, and the credit application under your name. I sat there, phone pressed lightly against my ear, absorbing the weight of that. Because fraud doesn't exist in isolation. It connects. It leaves trails. And Daniel, I asked? He's being questioned, Robert said. He claims he didn't know what his mother was doing. I almost smiled at that. Not because it was funny, because it was predictable. Do they believe him? I asked. They'll look at the evidence, Robert said. And right now, the evidence includes text messages. I didn't ask which ones. I already knew. Mom, just sign it. She won't notice. His voice, written in black and white. Simple, casual, certain. That was the thing about lies. They required coordination, and coordination left records. Later that afternoon, another call came through. Unknown number again. I answered it, this time without hesitation. Miss Brooks, Daniel Kessler's voice returned, more strained than before. We need to talk. No, we don't, I replied calmly. My client is willing to drop the restraining order, he said quickly. We can file for mutual dissolution immediately. There it was. The pivot. From accusation to negotiation. I don't consent, I said. There was a pause. Longer this time. You don't want the order dropped? He asked carefully. I leaned back in my chair, letting the silence stretch just enough. The order protects him from me, I said. I wouldn't want him to feel unsafe. That's not what this is about, he said, frustration starting to surface. He's facing serious financial hardship. That's unfortunate, I replied, but I can't be involved in his finances. That would violate the order. He's going to lose his apartment. I'm not his guarantor anymore. His car is not my responsibility. Another pause. Tighter this time. You're choosing to let this happen, he said. No, I corrected gently. I'm choosing to comply. I ended the call before he could respond. Because sometimes the truth isn't complicated. It's just uncomfortable. By Thursday, the consequences had accelerated. Car repossession. That's how I found out. Not through him, through a post. Mia again. Different tone this time. More frantic, less controlled. How far does cruelty go? First she cuts him off. Now she's taken his car too. Attached was a photo. Empty parking space. A caption filled with accusation. I stared at it for a moment. Then I looked closer, at the details she hadn't thought to hide. Missed payments. Late notices. Dates. Months of them. The car hadn't been taken because of me. It had been taken because the illusion had finally run out of time. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Because this time, someone else did. A comment appeared beneath the post. Simple, direct. If she took his car, that means she was paying for it. So how is stopping payments abuse? No reply. 10 minutes later, the post was gone. Again. Patterns. That same afternoon, Robert called. They've filed charges, he said. Against Diane? Yes, forgery and identity theft. I closed my eyes briefly, not out of relief. Just acknowledgement. And Daniel? He's implicated, Robert said. Not charged yet, but that could change depending on how the case develops. Everything was tightening now. Not emotionally. Legally. That's when the next attempt came. Desperation always finds new angles. This time it was a crowdfunding campaign. I wouldn't have seen it if someone hadn't sent it to me. A link. No message attached. Just a quiet nudge. I opened it. Help a survivor escape financial abuse. That was the title. Daniel's story was written beneath it. Carefully constructed. Emotionally charged. A controlling girlfriend who cut him off the moment he stood up for himself. A victim trying to rebuild. He was asking for help with housing, transportation, basic needs. I read it once. Then I closed the page. Not angry. Not even surprised. Just tired. 3 days later, the campaign disappeared. Not because of me. Because someone else had posted screenshots in the comments. Photos. Luxury dinners. Designer clothes. Captions like, grateful for someone who always takes care of me. The platform reviewed it. Flagged it. Shut it down. Again, not my voice. Just truth catching up. Friday morning, I received another call. This one, different. The number was familiar. I answered immediately. Luciana, a calm, older voice said. Yes? It's Richard, Daniel's father. I straightened slightly. We had met a handful of times. Quiet man. Observant. The kind who listened more than he spoke. I wanted to apologize, he said. For what? I asked. For all of this, he replied simply, and for him. I didn't respond right away. Not because I didn't have words. Because I didn't need them. I've seen this before, he continued, with his mother. There it was. The pattern. Spoken out loud. False accusations, legal pressure, financial manipulation, he said. It's the same script. I leaned back slowly, listening. You're doing the right thing, he added. Don't step back in. They escalate until you react. Then they reset. I exhaled quietly. A tension I hadn't even realized I was holding. Easing just slightly. Thank you, I said. And I meant it. Because clarity doesn't always come from inside. Sometimes it's handed to you by someone who's already lived it. That weekend, things went quiet again. Not peaceful. Not yet. Just quieter. Like a storm pulling back before the final break. I knew it wasn't over. Not because I was afraid. Because patterns don't stop mid-cycle. They complete themselves. And something told me the next step wouldn't be subtle. The next step wasn't subtle. It never is when desperation replaces strategy. It happened on day 24 of the guarantor window. Late morning. I was in the middle of reviewing a contract when my office line rang. Not my cell. Internal security. Miss Brooks, the guard said, voice steady but alert. There's a man here asking for you. Daniel Monroe. I didn't react immediately. Not outwardly. I've already provided you with the restraining order and his photo, I said. Yes, ma'am, he replied. We recognized him. He's at the entrance now. He says he just wants to talk. Of course he did. They always do, I said quietly. Do not let him in. Understood. I hung up. Then I sat there for a moment, staring at nothing in particular. Not angry. Not shaken. Just aware. Because this was the part where the illusion finally breaks. Minutes later, my phone buzzed again. Security. He's refusing to leave, the guard said. He's raising his voice. I closed my eyes briefly. And the police? On their way. I nodded to myself. Thank you. I didn't go downstairs. I didn't watch. I didn't need to. Some things don't require a front row seat to understand how they end. Later that afternoon, Robert called. They arrested him, he said. For violating the restraining order, I replied. Yes, he confirmed. He spent the night in custody. His mother posted bail this morning. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly. There it was. The moment everything shifted from narrative to record. Because once something is documented like that, it stops being a story. It becomes fact. And facts don't bend. That should have been enough. For most people, it would have been. But patterns don't end quietly. They escalate until there's nothing left to escalate. The next day, Diane made her move. Not privately, not carefully, publicly. She held what could only be described as an impromptu press conference on the courthouse steps. 3 local reporters showed up, probably expecting something minor, something contained. They didn't get that. I saw the footage later. Not on television. Online. It doesn't take much anymore. A camera, a moment, a platform. That's all it takes. Diane stood there, composed in that way people are when they believe they still control the narrative. She spoke about financial abuse, about manipulation, about powerful women using money to dominate men. She tried to frame herself and Daniel as examples. Victims. That word again. But then one of the reporters asked a question. Simple, direct. Ma'am, aren't you currently under indictment for forgery and identity theft related to this same individual? A pause. Short. Sharp. That's irrelevant, she said. Another reporter stepped in. You allegedly forged her signature to access credit and insurance, he added. How is that different from financial abuse? Silence. Not from the reporters. From her. Because there are moments where language fails, where the script runs out. I was protecting my son, she said finally. The clip ended there. It didn't air on any major network, but it stayed online. Circulated. Discussed. Analyzed. Because once something like that exists, it doesn't disappear. Not really. A few days later, Carla called again. Miss Brooks, I'm confirming that Mr. Monroe has been formally evicted, she said. I listened quietly. He has 48 hours to vacate, she continued. His applications for new housing have been denied following credit and background checks. Thank you, I said. I meant it. Not because I was relieved. Because I was done. In the end, it didn't feel dramatic. It didn't feel victorious. It felt quiet. Daniel moved in with his mother. A 1-bedroom apartment in a part of town he used to joke about avoiding. Life has a way of removing the distance between what we say and what we live. The restraining order remained in place. He tried to have it dismissed. The judge reviewed the violation. Denied the request. Order remains active, the record stated. Simple. Final. His new lawyer, Tom, made one last attempt. A letter, carefully worded. What Mr. Monroe is willing to acknowledge that certain claims may have been exaggerated, it said, in exchange for 6 months of financial assistance to help him stabilize. I read it once. Then I called Robert. What exactly is he asking for? I said. Money, Robert replied, framed as rehabilitation support. I almost laughed. Not out loud. Just internally. Rehabilitation from what? I asked. Lifestyle adjustment, he said dryly. I nodded slowly. Then I gave my answer. No. No explanation. No negotiation. Just no. A week later, I ran into Mia. Of all places, a grocery store. She saw me first. Tried to turn. Too late. We made eye contact. And for a moment, neither of us moved. How is he? I asked finally. She hesitated. Working retail, she said. Living with his mom. I nodded. And you? She asked quietly. I'm fine. She shifted slightly. He really cared about you, she said. He just panicked when you questioned his spending. Panicked enough to file a legal document accusing me of abuse, I replied. She winced. That was his mom's idea, she said after a moment. She thought if he filed it, you'd back down, keep paying. There it was, out loud. No screenshots, no speculation, just truth. And did he think that too? I asked. Mia didn't answer. She didn't need to, because silence can be very clear. How else would you explain it? I said gently. She looked down. I guess I wouldn't. We stood there for a moment longer. Then she walked away. And that was that. No confrontation, no closure, just an ending. Later I heard that Diane pleaded guilty. Forgery, identity theft, probation, community service. Daniel's credit score dropped into the low 400s. He was already seeing someone new, according to his father, asking her for help with bills. Patterns don't disappear. They relocate. As for me, I took everything I had been pouring into his life and redirected it. $35,000 a month. Gone. Reclaimed. I increased my retirement contributions. Built an investment portfolio. Bought myself the coffee machine I had always said was excessive. It wasn't. It was mine. I signed up for a baking class. Discovered I liked working with my hands. Slow processes. Things that required patience. Things that couldn't be rushed or manipulated. Life got quiet. Then it got peaceful. And somewhere along the way, I realized something. The restraining order he filed to control me became the cleanest boundary I had ever been given. No arguments. No back and forth. No second chances disguised as compassion. Just distance. Enforced. Final. If there's anything I learned, it's this. When someone puts into writing that your presence and your support is harmful, believe them and step away completely. Not halfway, not temporarily, completely. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is give someone exactly what they asked for and let reality do the rest.